It started with a flyer on a corkboard at the train station. Volunteers needed, high compensation, low risk. I barely noticed it until I passed it again the next day, and again the day after that. It was as if the paper was following me. The ink never faded, the edges never curled, and something about it felt too crisp, too new. I scanned the QR code on the bottom. A sterile website popped up. White background, no logo, just Sensory Research Initiative. Phase 3 trials now open. Below it, a single sentence, compensation for $1,000 per session. I clicked apply. There was no form, only a loading screen that said, "We see you." A second later, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. No ringtone, just a message. "Thank you for enrolling. Arrival time, 7 p.m. Location, sent separately." Before I could reply, another message came through. "Do not speak about this. Do not bring a guest. Do not miss your appointment." The next morning, I received a plain white envelope in my mailbox. No return address. Inside, a key card, a folded map, and a list of rules. The rules were printed on thick, waxy paper, and the first line read, "You will experience sensations that do not belong to you." I almost threw it out, but I needed the money. The building was underground. Literally. I had to park by an old warehouse, then follow a tunnel marked only by a single flickering bulb. At the end of the corridor was a door with a keypad. When I scanned the card, the door opened without a sound. Inside was nothing but a chair, a table, and a headset. The headset looked like a VR visor, but heavier. Cold to the touch. There were no buttons, no screens, no cables. Just a faint hum when I picked it up. A voice came from the ceiling. Smooth. Neutral. "Session 1 will now begin. You may remove the device at any time, but doing so will forfeit all payment." I sat down, placed the visor over my eyes. Everything went dark for a moment. Then a forest. Not a screen. Not a simulation. It felt like I was there. I could feel the air, hear the crunch of leaves, smell moss and wet bark, but I couldn't move my body, because it wasn't mine. I was inside someone else, looking through their eyes, breathing with their lungs, walking with their legs. They held something in their hand, a small carved idol. It pulsed faintly. The person whispered, "They can hear when you forget your name." I tried to speak, but nothing came out, only their voice. It trembled. "Don't talk to the ones in the trees," they said. "They only look like people." Then the vision flickered. A face appeared for a split second, wrong, twitching, too wide. Then blackness. The headset powered down. Session over. When I took off the visor, I was sweating. My hands were shaking. I stood up and stumbled back into the hallway. But something was off. The light bulb I'd passed on the way in, it was gone. And the corridor was longer now. Too long. Like the building had grown while I was inside. When I finally reached the exit, the door unlocked before I touched it. Fresh air hit me like a wave. But it didn't feel like the same air. Too thick. Too still. I drove home in silence, watching the rearview mirror more than the road. And yet, I didn't remember driving at all. That night, I woke up at exactly 3:03 a.m. Not to a noise, but to a feeling, like someone was standing at the foot of my bed, watching. I didn't see anyone, but I heard something in my head, a whisper. "Session 2 begins tomorrow." The next envelope arrived at noon. Same key card, same map, but the rules were different. Fewer this time, and one line was underlined in red. "If you feel like you've been here before, leave immediately." I told myself it was just precaution, but I brought a knife just in case. The second session started faster. No welcome, no voice, just darkness, and then I was on a subway. Fluorescent lights flickering above. Dozens of passengers around me, but they weren't breathing, not blinking, just sitting perfectly still. I tried to turn my head, couldn't. I looked through this body's eyes as they stared at the door. It opened, and something stepped in, tall, wearing clothes that looked almost normal. But its face, it had too many teeth, and it was smiling at me. The thing walked slowly down the aisle, not swaying. Its steps were off, like it was learning how to move. It stopped in front of me, bent down, and said, "You're not him yet, but you will be." Then everything snapped to black. I yanked off the headset, gasping. The room was colder now, darker. My reflection in the visor looked wrong, like it had moved before I did. When I stood up, the chair creaked behind me. But I hadn't touched it. I left without looking back. Back at home, I found a note taped to my door. No handwriting, just typed text on the same waxy paper. "Do not speak to others about your experiences." Beneath that, in smaller text, "They won't believe you. And if they do, they'll start to see them too." I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard metal screeching, like subway brakes grinding endlessly. I started seeing flashes, faces from the train, looping like a broken reel. Smiling, blinking backward, waiting. I decided to quit the trial. I didn't care about the money anymore. But when I tried to call the number, it no longer existed. When I returned to the address, there was nothing there. Just a chain-link fence, and beyond it, an empty field. I tried to forget. Tried to convince myself it was just stress, sleep deprivation. But the dreams didn't stop. Every night, I'd wake up somewhere else. Once, it was a mirror maze. Another time, a hospital corridor that looped. But always that voice returned. "You are sinking faster now." That's what it said. And the more I tried to ignore it, the more the world began to glitch. Streetlights flickered when I walked past. Reflections moved slower than I did. And sometimes, I would blink and be in another place. One morning, I woke up with blood on my hands. Not a lot, just a smear. It wasn't mine. No cuts, no pain. I checked the entire apartment. Nothing, except a single footprint on the ceiling. Bare, human, facing the wrong direction. I stopped answering my phone. It only rang between 3 o'clock and 3:04 a.m. Always silent, always unknown numbers. And when I blocked one, another would appear. Eventually, the messages just read, "You can't leave if we haven't finished." I hadn't signed a contract. At least, I didn't remember signing anything. But every day, a new envelope arrived, each with a new rule, each more cryptic than the last. If someone knocks more than twice, don't answer. If they knock less than twice, run. I started hearing static in my ears, soft at first, then louder, until one night it formed words. "You're being calibrated." I smashed my radio, my phone, even my smoke detector. But the sound didn't stop. It was inside me now. I wrote a note and mailed it to myself. Just 4 words. "You are still you." But when it arrived, the envelope had been opened, and someone had crossed out the last word. In red ink, it now read, "You are still." One night, the headset was waiting on my kitchen table. I hadn't brought it home. I hadn't touched it, but it was sitting there like it belonged. Beside it, a note. "Session 3 begins when you're ready." We are. I stared at it for hours. I didn't want to put it on, but I couldn't throw it away. Eventually, without realizing it, I reached for it. My hand moved on its own. And when the visor touched my skin, I felt relief. Like going home. This time, there was no loading screen. No darkness. I was sitting in a living room. Bright. Comfortable. Familiar. And across from me was me. Smiling. But not blinking. Not breathing. Just smiling. Like it had been waiting. The other me leaned forward. Its movements were almost right, but too fluid. Like it had studied me. "You're not dreaming," it whispered. "You're observing. That's all you've ever done." Then it lifted its hand and pointed at me. The lights went out. I pulled the visor off, but the darkness stayed. My apartment lights were off. My phone was dead. My reflection in the mirror stood still after I moved. Its smile didn't match mine. I threw a blanket over the mirror and slept with the door locked. That night, I heard someone whispering outside my door. I live on the 5th floor. No balcony, no fire escape. But the voice was there, behind the wall, repeating a single sentence. "We are so proud of how far you've come." I stopped leaving the house. stopped eating much. The headset was always there, no matter where I put it. Sometimes on the bed, sometimes in the fridge. Once it was in my bathtub, still dry, still humming. I turned it on again. I needed answers. This time I was in a hallway. Long, narrow, flickering lights. Identical doors on either side. I didn't feel like I was observing anymore. I felt hunted. I opened the first door. It was a child's bedroom. Everything was made of wax. The bed, the books, even the boy sitting on the floor. He looked up at me and said, "They gave me your name." Then he began to melt. I ran to the next door. Inside, a hospital room. A man lay in a bed, hooked to nothing, staring at the ceiling. His mouth moved but made no sound. Then I realized he had no eyes, just mirrors where they should have been. Every door showed me a new version of suffering. Every room was colder, darker. Then I found one door slightly open. Inside was my apartment, exactly as I'd left it, except I was already there, sleeping in my own bed. I stepped inside. The room pulsed. The air was thicker, and my sleeping self opened its eyes. But only the eyes. The body stayed still. The eyes locked onto me and whispered, "One of us has to leave. The question is who?" The headset ripped itself off my face. I fell backward into the floor. Only the floor didn't catch me. I kept falling. Endless, silent, weightless falling. Until I landed in my own bed again. Except this time, there were 2 heartbeats in my chest. I started hearing 2 versions of myself. One voice in my head. One voice in my throat. They didn't say the same things. One would scream. The other would laugh. And sometimes neither was me. I tried recording myself while I slept. The camera showed me standing by my own bed, watching myself, for hours, motionless. At 3:03 a.m. I whispered, "This version doesn't last." Then I lay back down and disappeared. My neighbors stopped saying hello. Some moved out. I don't remember them packing. One left their door wide open. I peeked inside. All the furniture was gone, but on the floor was a headset, identical to mine. I tried burning it, the visor. I took it to the woods, lit a fire, watched it melt. But when I got home, it was waiting on my pillow. And beside it, a note I hadn't seen before. Destruction confirms consent. My reflection no longer smiled. It looked tired, older. Its skin sagged. And sometimes when I walked away, I could still see it, watching me from the mirror. Breathing slower, waiting. I started writing everything down, trying to track time, trying to track me. But the ink would change when I looked away. Entries I never wrote appeared. Things like, "He is resisting. Lower the temperature." I received a final letter. It read, "Phase 4 integration." No instructions, no warnings, just that phrase. And beneath it, scratched in pencil, "Make sure the original forgets." That night, the knock came. Once, then silence, then one more knock. Not 2, just 1. Twice. I froze. Then the doorknob began to turn. Slowly, like someone testing if I'd locked it. I grabbed a chair and wedged it under the handle. The door pressed in, not violently, but like someone leaning their weight against it. Then I heard a voice. My voice, whispering from the hallway. "You left me behind." I don't remember falling asleep. But when I woke up, my door was open. The chair was across the room. And the headset was gone. In its place, a single mirror, covered in fingerprints from the inside. The mirror pulsed softly, like it was breathing. My reflection stood still. Then it blinked, once for me, once for itself. Then it raised its hand and pointed behind me. There was nothing there at first. I turned, just the wall. But when I looked back, my reflection was gone. Not missing, replaced. Something else stood there, wearing my shape, but with too many eyes, too many teeth, and smiling. I smashed the mirror. Glass flew everywhere. But in the shards, I saw pieces of the thing still watching me. Each piece held a different version. Some crying, some screaming. One just mouthed the words, "He's almost here." I checked outside. Daylight. Normal people. But they didn't see me. Not one. I stood in the middle of the sidewalk, and they all passed through me. Literally. Like I was static in their signal. I'm not sure when the world stopped sinking. I'd see birds flying backward, people laughing with no sound. Rain would fall upward, and no one noticed. I was the only one still watching it glitch. My phone turned back on. One message. Audio only. Just breathing at first. Then a voice whispered, "Final session begins now. Look behind you." I didn't, but the light in the room changed. My shadow was no longer mine. It moved differently, slower, then faster. Then it detached, and when it did, it smiled at me, just like the thing from the train. Except this time it had my voice. I tried running, but the world wouldn't let me. Doors moved, stairs folded, time skipped like a scratched DVD. I ended up in my bed again, just like every time, but something was already there. I walked toward it, the figure, lying exactly where I should be. It looked like me, sounded like me, but it whispered a single sentence. "They chose me. You were just the rehearsal." I screamed, and the world shattered. Not metaphorically, literally. Glass, sound, memory, everything cracked. And behind it all was a room. White, cold, lined with mirrors. And inside each mirror was a different version of me, still screaming. Each mirror held a different timeline. In one, I was strapped to a hospital bed. In another, I wore a lab coat and smiled at myself. In one, I was just a child, crying into my hands as something behind me loomed closer. A screen blinked on. Text scrolled across. Test subject, fragmentation stable. Residual identity, acceptable. Proceeding to integration phase. And then I saw them, the observers. Shadows behind one-way glass, watching. They'd been watching the entire time. Not just me. Every version of me. Across timelines. Across mirrors. Across selves. And now, they were ready to combine us. I was pulled into a mirror. No hands. Just force. Like gravity, but sideways. I landed in a hospital room. Hooked to wires. Monitors beeped. And a nurse leaned over, whispering, "You've been asleep for years." I asked for my name. She paused. "That depends. Which version are you asking for?" I stared at my hands. They were older, but the skin pulsed slightly, like something underneath was trying to escape. They showed me footage, years of footage, of me screaming, laughing, crying, over and over again, sometimes begging, sometimes silent, all while wearing the headset, all while they watched. "You volunteered," they said. "You paid us." That part one didn't believe, until they showed me the receipt, my signature, my handwriting, and one line, consent to permanent subjective restructuring. I tried to leave. I really did. But every door I opened led back to the same room, only slightly different. One smelled like fire. One had no windows. One had a copy of me strung up by wires. I finally found a room with no mirrors, no screens, just a chair, and the headset. Only this time it was made of bone, and it was already warm, like it had been used by something not quite human. A voice echoed in the room, not through speakers, in my head. "Final protocol, collapse initiated. One version survives." The headset rose on its own. And I knew. I wasn't the only one in this body anymore. I didn't put the headset on. It slid over my face like it had a will of its own. Everything turned black. No visuals. No sounds. Only pressure. Like my brain was being folded inward. Like something was crawling across my thoughts. A voice broke the silence. My voice. "You've reached the center. There is no further." And then I saw it, not with eyes, but with memory. The original version of me. Alone. Unbroken. Still untouched. He was sitting in a chair, smiling, watching a monitor that displayed everything. All the tests. All the mirrors. All the versions. He turned to me and said, "So, which of us is real now?" I didn't know how to answer. He stood, stepped forward, and began to peel. Skin first, then face, then muscle, until beneath him was just light, cold, white, and infinite. He stepped into me. No pain, no sound, just a sudden expansion, like I could feel every version of myself screaming at once. All the memories, all the pain, compressed into a single breath. Then the room shifted. I was standing in a lab. Clean, bright, dozens of people applauding. A man in a coat shook my hand. "Congratulations," he said. "You're the stable one, the only one who made it through." I didn't smile. I didn't speak. I didn't even blink. I was still in shock. Or maybe I was still inside the test. Because outside the lab window, I saw my reflection. And it was still watching me. They told me I was free to go. But every time I tried, something stopped me. Not physically, just wrongness. Like the world had been assembled wrong. Like I didn't belong in any reality anymore. One night, I caught my shadow moving again. It turned to face me. And this time it smiled. "You're not in control," it whispered. "You're the final product. You're what they were trying to make." And then it stepped into me. Now I walk through mirrors. Not metaphorically. Literally. I see every version of myself trapped in the same loop. Screaming at walls. Begging for release. And I whisper to each one, "You asked for this." Time doesn't move forward anymore. It circles. Repeats. Some days, I wake up in my childhood room. Others, I wake up mid-sentence in a conversation I've never had. But one thing is always the same. I'm always wearing the headset. I tried destroying it again. Crushed it under a car. Drowned it in concrete. Left it in the fire overnight. But every time I blink, it returns to my nightstand, clean, cold, waiting. I can hear the other versions now. Whispers in my sleep. Some beg. Some warn. One laughs constantly. They all speak in my voice. They all say the same thing. "The real you died a long time ago." I can't remember my own name anymore. But I remember the code, K37, Fragment Reconciliation. That's what they called it. The experiment. The test. The trap. They said I would be stronger after. But I just feel thinner. They told me I was the survivor. But I think I'm just the cleanest failure. The least broken. The one they could still parade in front of cameras. But even the others, even the ones that shattered, they still whisper. And I still hear them. My skin doesn't fit right. It shifts when I move. Sometimes I find scratches down my back that I don't remember making. Sometimes I dream of being dissected while I watch from the ceiling, unblinking. People recognize me in public. They wave. Say things like, "Glad you're better now." But I don't know them. Not in this version. I think I was part of their lives in someone else's loop. I've stopped speaking aloud. The echoes don't always come back right. Sometimes they repeat things I never said. Once I said hello to my reflection, and it replied, "Why do you think you're the original? The world looks too sharp now. Edges shimmer. Colors bleed. Faces hold smiles too long. And when I close my eyes, I still see. Not with vision, but with memory. The observers came back. I don't know how they got in, or if they were ever gone. They don't speak. They just watch. From corners. From reflections. From shadows that stretch wrong. I confronted them once. Asked what I am now. What I became. One of them finally answered. The first stable loop. A seed for more. And then it split into static. Now when I breathe, I hear feedback. Like a mic too close to a speaker. Like my body is broadcasting something I can't understand. Like I've become a signal. I've forgotten how to dream. I only recall loops. Fragments. Moments that play again and again until they rot. I think that's what this is. A rotting dream that used to be a person. I've stopped eating. Don't need to. The body keeps going. Autopilot. Sometimes I wake up mid-step outside, under a dead sky with no stars. The program was never about senses. It was about identity. How many versions can a mind hold before it cracks? Before it spreads? Before it becomes contagious? If you're hearing this, then maybe I found a way to reach outside, to bleed into your world. Maybe you're next. Maybe you're already in. You wouldn't know. That's the point. Check your mirrors. Check your dreams. Listen for echoes in your breath. Watch for things that shift when you're not looking. And whatever you do, don't wear the headset. It always starts the same. An ad, a test, a consent form you don't remember signing, a click, and then you forget what version you were to begin with. I'm not warning you. It's already too late. This message, this voice, this story, it's just another loop, another fragment, another test of containment. The signal is spreading, and now you've heard it too. So ask yourself as your shadow twitches and your mirror smiles back, which version are you? And how many are still asleep?